Vicariously Podcast. Stories and insights from unique entrepreneurs successfully pursuing their passion. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another episode of Vicariously Podcast. Sorry for the weird studio setup, but I'm actually traveling for the next couple weeks. So making the best of the situation. Anyways, today's guest is awesome. It is Miss Bobbi Brink of Lions, Tigers, and Bears. It is a sanctuary located in Alpine, California. I've actually been there 3 times just as a total fan, and so I've been trying to get her on the podcast. She's super interesting, just a really good soul, a good entrepreneurial story, and she actually shares what her annual upkeep is, how she left the restaurant business to start this, etc. I'm not going to give all the details away, but a really interesting story. And if you're ever in California, gotta go see Lions, Tigers, and Bears. Check out their website. They do a ton of fundraisers. Lions, Tigers, and Bears.org. Miss Bobbi Brink on this week's Vicariously Podcast. I'm out. All right, so we are here out in Alpine, California. It is a gorgeous day. The sun is shining, the birds are chirping, and we are on the grounds of a sanctuary with Miss Bobbi Brink. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So I have been really excited for this podcast. I've actually been out here to visit the sanctuary 3 times prior. I've never met Bobbi, but I have always wanted to kind of sit down and pick your brain on how you started this venture, how you got into it, how you've sustained. And then also, I think you have a really interesting background story of you as a entrepreneur, as a professional, how you even went down this path. So if you could just kind of jump in and give a quick background on how you got to us sitting here on your grounds with lions, tigers, bears. We have a chicken crawling in between our feet. And there are some amazing exotic animals floating around us.
Well, I've always been an animal lover, but I worked in the restaurant industry for many years, bartending, just working in a restaurant, waiting tables. I went through Paragon's management training. I helped open a lot of the Hungry Hunters and Rusty Pelican and Monterey Whaling companies. And I wanted to open my own restaurant. So I saved and did my homework and found the fastest growing city and what I thought was a perfect location to open a restaurant. And I moved to Texas, and I'm from San Diego. And when I was opening my restaurant and looking through the classified ads, I kept seeing lions, tigers, leopards for sale. And you don't see that here. So, of course, I wanted to go and see. So I went to this woman's house, and she lived in a mobile home on 5 acres. And it ended up, she had 30 big cats, all breeding pairs, mostly all being bred, and babies crawling around the mobile home floor. You could take one home today, tiger, cougar, leopard, no questions asked, cheaper than a good bred dog. So I was kind of shocked. But anyway, I was with her for probably like 3 hours. And then I just started volunteering. And then I got my restaurant open, but I was still continually going back like every moment and working with the animals. And then I went to different facilities and started working with a guy with some bears. And you just start seeing all the bad. Even in that time, I saw tigers for sale in the Walmart parking lot. And I used to have cattle at the time in a hayfield. And at the cattle auction, I would see them auctioning off baby tigers one week or baby cougars one week. And it just saddened. And anyway, time went by and my restaurant did really well, but I wanted to come back home, and it was a really hard decision. And Mark and I thought we were helping some leopards because we got a call to help some leopards. So we funded to build a leopard cage and provide for the leopards. And the deal was she would spay and neuter. And it wasn't like a couple weeks after the habitat was done, the animals were bred. So that was like, it make you mad, make you angry. Yeah. And that was kind of the moment when we decided we were going to do it ourselves. We weren't going to give any more money. We weren't going to help anymore. We were going to start Lions, Tigers, and Bears.
And so to back up and give some premise on that too is essentially these people are raising the animals. They're sometimes even breeding the animals. They have no permits. They have no understanding of how to take care of these animals. I have no idea how to even got them in their possession. Yeah. And they're strictly treating these exotic animals the same as a regular household dog and cat and just trying to make $1 on the sale of them.
Right. At this time, 17 17 to 18 states, it was perfectly legal to own any animal as a pet.
So we're like mid-90s?
Right, 1990.
Okay.
And if you don't exhibit to the public, you don't have to have a federal permit to this day in a lot of states. And most people don't know exotic animal trade second to drugs and weapons and human trafficking in our country. So it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. A tiger's worth way more dead than alive. It's really sad.
That is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So you pack up shop, you leave the restaurant, and your whole premise of working in that space as a volunteer, were you trying to get a grasp on all the moving parts that was going on in the industry, or were you still a little naive in the sense of just taking care of the animals that this woman had at her site?
At first, I was totally naive, but it takes no time to catch on to what's going on because the animals are just constantly going out the door at a breeder's. I mean, and at the time, this woman was breeding to legitimate organizations like Disney and Siegfried and Roy and for certain zoos and aquariums and, and then other organizations that we were working at, you'd see the same thing, just selling to anybody. And it gets to be where it's only about the money. And I think a lot of these people start as animal lovers with good intentions, and then it just goes the wrong way.
And basically, you're doing something illegal. So it's kind of a...
Sometimes, because what she was doing was perfectly legal.
Yeah.
Legal to sell a tiger to anybody at the time.
But if you go 6 months or 6 years with this tiger and then you hit that point where it's gotten too big or you can't take care of it, now you're in a little bit of a pickle on what you should do with it, because it's not like a household dog or a lizard that you can go back to the pet store, go to adoption agency. You have a full-blown tiger or bear or...
And the sad thing is 99% of the time, private ownership, it doesn't work out. The animal just outgrows the people. Like you said, their neighbor flips out. There's no homeowner's insurance.
Yeah.
They have a tiger, but no insurance.
Yeah.
No permit, no nothing.
So you decide to pick up, and your husband, Mark, is completely on board and says, cool, we'll go back to San Diego. And you wanted to start lions, tigers, and bears, which is where we sit right now out in Alpine, California. So what's the first step after you move back and kind of getting this going?
Well, Mark was here.
Oh, okay.
So this was prior to us being married. And then when I came back with Mark. And so Mark to this day still has his business because that's how we actually make our living, not from lions, tigers, and bears. And it took about 3 years to really get started. 3 years to do the paperwork because there's so much red tape in California. Yeah. And then once we found this property, it took about 2.5 years to get all the zoning and get the permits through and a lot of red tape. So it took about 5 years to really get this going. And I'm not really sure we knew exactly what we were getting ourselves into, but here we are.
That is quite the commitment.
It's not something you can, walk away. This is a lifetime 24/7.
Yeah.
You must be dedicated commitment.
I totally agree. And obviously I don't know the full capacity of everything, but one of the things that I've currently subscribed and I get the emails from you guys. And so I know that it's a constant, two things. It's a constant battle as far as from a legislative standpoint, but it's also just a constant struggle as far as fundraising, picking up these animals, just in general, taking care of them. I mean, even the simplest of things, and I don't want to jump ahead because I still really want to dive into the whole progress, but I just remember last year, San Diego, so I'm from the East Coast, but San Diego got dumped on. There was a ton of flooding, which is crazy because the East Coast, everyone looks at California and says they're complaining about getting a handful of inches and they're claiming a natural disaster. But the infrastructure in Southern California is not in place to be able to handle massive amounts of rain. And so we're up here in higher elevation and you had to deal with flooding and relocating a whole lot of animals in a hurry.
Well, we've done pretty well here because we kind of lucked out. The first year we came here, it was super rainy, like one of our rainiest years, and we hadn't built anything yet. So you kind of get to see where the water goes and flows, and we've been able to watch that as we build one habitat at a time. And it's one of the things that we really look at when we think about where we're going to put the next habitats, where the water is going to flow around it, not through it.
Smart.
Because the water used to go right through Conga's cage right here, right through her habitat. So we've just had to divert the water.
And Conga is a gorgeous leopard that we are...
Who does not like to swim? No.
She is, I don't see her right now, but she's floating around. She's probably about 10, 12 feet from us. She is gorgeous. All right. So you spend 5 years essentially getting this 94-acre property together. You have to go through all the red tape with probably city, county, the California Wildlife and Game.
Fishing game. USDA.
A lot.
A lot.
How does one even find out all of the different intricacies that you had to go through?
Get on the computer, get on the phone. Just somewhere to start.
So Mark had his business, which is...
Right. We paint helicopters mostly, but we do custom paint and vinyl graphics.
Wow.
Yeah. Mostly paint law enforcement helicopters.
Very unique profession.
Different.
So that's on the side, and then you have this up and going.
We won't tell Mark that's on the side, but yeah.
That's, in
he
our
likes
eyes.
to think lions, tigers, bears on the side.
That's fine. All right, so you have that going on, which obviously helps fund this, but you now have the infrastructure. It's what, so 2005, 2007?
2003 is when we really kind of started, and this was a cow pasture. So we actually took out corrals and like little shacks that they had hay in and things. And there was the cabin and the adobe. So the adobe was built in 1860. It used to be a stagecoach stop and one of the very first mail stops up from the old Mexico run. And in the day, they wanted the water here because there's an abundance of water on this property. Like there's natural springs and the water that's why the grass is so green.
Yeah.
We catch up the spring water and water with it because if not, it just goes to waste. But that was there in the cabin. So we really started with nothing. So raw land, no power, no electricity. And we just have built one habitat at a time, rescue one animal at a time because every life counts. And here we are.
So what did you start with? What was the first grouping of animals?
We had Gizmo the bobcat. When we came, we had brought him in, and then we brought Natasha and Raja, which were the first two tigers. And they actually came from Alvin, Texas, and they lived in a 6x12, 5 years, no shade, no shelter. Just a metal bucket for water. One had to stand up for one to lay down. You and I couldn't even live like that for 5 years. These animals are super sturdy animals. It's amazing what they go through.
Hoping that lions, tigers, and bears sanctuary was on the other end.
Right. And then when he got in trouble, that's when I kind of got the call from my friend, the original woman that I had met. She said, these tigers got to go because they're going to kill them if we don't get them out of there. The guy's threatening to shoot them. And I'm thinking, you can't shoot a tiger. But anyway, we got on the phone and we got 30 days. U.S. Fish and Wildlife gave us 30 days to get whatever built here, get the permits to cross the state lines and bring them here. So they were the first two tigers that we brought.
And then how soon until your next animals came in?
Well, we didn't know Natasha was pregnant.
Oh.
So we actually had 4 tigers, not 2.
That's
so it wasn't
cool.
long after, a couple months.
That is crazy. And I'm sure you were somewhat excited, but at the same time, you probably didn't have the infrastructure to deal with it.
We kind of had the thought that she could be pregnant because, male and female together.
Yeah.
But with all the stress of what they had gone through and coming across the country, and when she got here, she was very stressed because she'd never been out of that 6-foot cage ever. So space was really scary. And even though we only put her in a 10x24, we actually had to make it smaller so she could be comfortable. And then we would just slowly make it bigger until she was, finally in something big. But we really believed if she was pregnant, she wouldn't carry the babies, but she did.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then after that, who came in after?
So Taboo and Satara were born, and Taboo's still here. Satara actually, she was about 11 years old, and she was playing in the exercise area, and she ruptured a disc. And when it ruptured, it went into her spinal cord. So we had caught her up and took her to the animal hospital, and of course did a CAT scan and an MRI. And about 2 hours into the surgery, they found the pieces and then we just knew. That was really sad, but
I'm sure. So as of right now, how many animals do you have on this property?
So we have 60 rescued animals, 17 different species. So we specialize in lions, tigers, and bears, but we even have like a rescued miniature donkey, miniature horses, llama, goat, sheep, a macaw, chickens, as you see.
Yeah,
and some of the chickens aren't a
count?
rescue. They just, needed to get out of where they were, like the peacocks. Somebody was shooting at them because they make noise in a neighborhood. So we just went down and picked them up.
So one of the most interesting things that I didn't realize until I came out here the first time, which was probably about a year and a half ago, was that you come here, you come to this facility. Who's yelling in the background, by the way?
Peacock.
Peacock?
That's Peacock.
So you come to this facility, and one of the misconceptions is that, cool, I'm going to go to a zoo-like atmosphere. I'm going to show up. I can see all these animals. It's going to be really engaging. It's going to be cool and interesting to see a lion this close and up personal. But the biggest, I'd say, misconception is that, first of all, you leave them in their own kind of environment. You let them do their thing and act as if they would in the wild, but they obviously have a much better life because you take care of them. But the other piece is that you're constantly working to rescue animals all over the country. And I don't know what the percentage is, but a lot of the times they don't even make it back to your facility. You're just strictly trying to take care of them, give them a better outlet, better home, and rescue them from the confines of the bad situations they're in.
Right. We're one of the only sanctuaries that have a proper transport set up to go across the country. And we work with the first responders a lot because a lot of people don't know they're not trained to go in and get a tiger or a bear out of someone's backyard. So we'll get calls from all over the country, and we work with the good sanctuaries, the accredited sanctuaries that are true sanctuaries, and help to get each animal to a proper sanctuary. And a lot of times these animals, they don't know how to be a bear or tiger because they've been in a backyard or a basement. So a lot of times when we bring them, they're afraid of space. And it can take 6 months for a year to them to really adjust to their new home and come out of their shell. And it just takes time and patience. And we try to give, provide the best habitat, natural habitat that we can. And we leave it to their choice. A lot of them have been hand raised. So that's all they know is to look for human companionship. So we try not to take that totally away, but yet we can't touch and pet them because everything's got to be safe. So everything's protective contact. There's always chain link or caging between us and the animal. And then we just do the best we can to make the animal comfortable. So when we do the visits, that's one of the main reasons we offer the feed, because then the animals enjoy it too. So it's not like the zoo where you're just going to stare at the animal and they're miserable because the people are coming to visit. They're actually getting something that they enjoy to do. And if they didn't want to do it, they wouldn't come down and play.
Yeah. No, that's well said. It was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. I got to feed the leopard, and the first couple giant chunks of meat, I don't know, what does she eat?
Raw meat, so raw beef, raw chicken, raw venison, raw pork.
I think I was feeding her raw chicken, and the first couple were down low, and the woman that was doing the tour with us, she said, "You're tall, you should hold it, she'll get it." And so I'm 6'5", and I'm holding it, this giant chunk of chicken on like a steel feeder.
Like a 3-foot fork.
Yes, basically a 3-foot fork in the air, sticking it to the top of the cage. And this leopard is jumping, whatever that is, 9 feet in the air, grabbing it and then dropping back down. It was really, really cool. And definitely one of the coolest things I've ever done.
And she likes it.
Yeah, she seemed into it. So that brings me into another thing. You have 60 plus animals here. Your bills as far as feeding these guys have to be pretty hefty.
Right. We're on about a $1.5 million budget per year. So we have to raise that every year to support the animals that we have. And our most expensive bills are insurance, electricity, and then food. And the keepers' labor, because they have to have keepers to take care of them. So
that brings me to my next question. How in the world do you afford that?
We beg and beg and fundraise. So we're constantly on the phone. We do our educational visits. We have our fundraisers. We go out in the community and table. So, pass out our information and tell people about lions, tigers, and bears. I go do presentations where we, talk to like groups of 50 people or more and show a video and just tell about lions, tigers, and bears, or whatever it takes. We let people get married here. We've had weddings out here and anniversary parties or corporate parties. We did a big Ford event one year, and we do whatever it takes to get money for the animals. And then when we commit to an animal, it's for life. So every time we take in an animal, we got to be able to provide for a big cat 20 years, for a bear 30 years. So it's a commitment.
It is. Coming from someone who is not married and has no kids, that is... I just got a little anxiety. All right. So you have 60 animals. Your upkeep annual budget is $1.5 million. You do this fundraising. So from an entrepreneurial standpoint, a business owner standpoint, is that stressful for you, that knowing that you have these obligations?
Of course. But, you just got to one day at a time and see what each day holds. And, every day something's going to be broken or something's going to, happen.
Yeah.
And at the same time, just try to look forward. When we built the first holding pen for Natasha and Raja, we raised $7,000 and we, in like 10 days, and we thought we really did something. Now we're trying to raise $433,000 to build the multi-acre cat habitat. So, and I know that seems like a lot, but really with the donors that we have sending $25, $60, $100, it's adding up.
Yeah.
And then the visits, it all adds up.
Yeah. No, it's and you from a marketing standpoint, I've seen some of the cool stuff that you've done. I know that your big event, I think your biggest event is May 20th. It's a fundraising event, right?
Right. It's a gala out here. And it's open house to the facility. This year we're doing it casino style. So there'll be gaming tables and Elvis and a band, magician, comedian, about 150 silent auction items and a live auction, a gift shop, just, little things for sale and games and stuff like that. So it'll be fun, really fun day.
It's catered towards families, right? You want to bring...
Right. It's a family event, but to be honest, right now, I think we've sold about 150 tickets and 2 of them are kids so far. So hopefully we get some more kids.
And then you also do overnight stays, right?
Right. We have what we call a retreat. So it's a 2-bedroom and it's set up for 2 couples. It only has one bathroom, but it has a little outdoor kitchen, a fire ring. You can look across and see the lions and tigers, and then, you can walk around the facility. And it just is a good fundraiser. We sell raffle tickets for that at $5 each, and we raise about $10,000 each raffle. So it helps us to raise money, and we will pull the white oak. We call it white oak at the fundraiser, the
cool.
winner for the raffle we're doing right now, and then we'll immediately start the raffle over for the Christmas party.
And so one of the coolest features of that is hearing the lions at night. Is what I've read and heard.
And it's really nice now because we just brought the 3 new lions in. So now they're calling back and forth because they haven't laid eyes on each other, but they can hear each other. So they're calling a lot in the night right now.
Nice. That is cool.
We always joke because we used to always say Bakari was he would be calling, but he didn't know he's the only lion in Hapatul because we call this Hapatul in Alpine. And now he has competition. So it's cute.
So from an entrepreneurial standpoint, would you say when you first got into this that it was a little bit of a passion project or a lifestyle, or did you go into it with the intentions of making money and making it your lifestyle? Like, what was your goal? What was your intentions when you first got into it?
Well, if you want to make money, you're not going to open a sanctuary because it costs a lot of money just to start this. I mean, just even buying the property, that's a huge, and definitely a passion. And you got to be resistant to just about everything. And I have had to learn a lot about people. And in the beginning, I know nothing of fundraising. So you think most people who come out are going to have good intentions. Not all people have good intentions. And you just got to kind of weed through, and learning how to manage volunteers and staff is really hard, especially when you get to having 60, 80 volunteers, or even 80 to 100 on the day of the fundraiser. It's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So you just got to be able to work. You got to be able to problem solve. Every time something happens, it's a problem. So you got to, figure out how to get through.
And everyone comes to you.
Yeah, no matter what, you just got to be resistant. Just keep going. And you can't look back.
So it's a really interesting point that you say that, because out of the other episodes, other podcast interviews that we've had, when people talk about resiliency and they talk about passion, it's about them. I don't want to say making money because I don't want to paint them into a corner. But so if you have someone, for example, Rubicon Deli, which is a staple in San Diego, we had them one. They got into it because they felt that they could make a better sandwich, and they were very resilient in sticking with it, and they had plenty of hiccups early on.
Right.
When we've had a couple commercial real estate folks on where they sink money into this business. They go a year, 2 years without making any money, and they stay resilient. And then all of a sudden it turns for them. They make a ton of money and they're doing very well now.
I think that's part of being a successful business person.
Absolutely.
You can't give up no matter what.
Absolutely. And I think that's what's so admirable about this setup is you have sunk a lot of money and a lot of time into it. But when you speak of resiliency, you're talking about just trying to stay afloat, essentially, and to sustain and take care of what you have.
Right. Well, and to myself, the paycheck is the animal who's scared to death to go out of their bedroom or scared to death of space out playing in the pool, and I believe this is a short life, and we're going to get our rewards in the next life, and we're going to get to lay down with these animals. There's going to be no cage. And so I think that's what keeps me going and trying to get a stop to the abuse and the cruelness that people have and do to animals to make money. It's heartbreaking. And it's really heartbreaking when you see somebody start as an animal lover and then they end up, making money off the animal, and then you'll see the animals start disappearing. And there's so many animals bred in this country, we don't even know what happens to them. And then we see that a lot with the opportunities to get your picture taken. It's only legal in the United States to have your picture taken with a baby from when it's 8 to 12 weeks old. So you can imagine, to keep a business going, you've got to have a lot of babies available for people to hold all year long. And where are all the babies going? Are they being killed? Are they, being sold to canned hunt ranches? Are they being sold for their body parts? Something's happening to them, and we don't know.
How many rescues do you think you do roughly a year? And out of those rescues, what is the percentage that the animals make it here versus go elsewhere? Because I know one of the ones, I'll let you answer that, and then I have another point.
It depends. It kind of depends. Like last year we worked in South Dakota. We moved to over 200, and I think 240 animals, including some of the fowl, the big geese and stuff, off of the property. So of course we don't really take those kind of animals, so it's better that they go to a bird sanctuary. And we don't take primates, so the primates would go to a primate sanctuary. And the big cats, you can only take in so many. The most expensive thing is building the habitat. So if you don't have habitat space, you can't take them. So we took in 4 cats from that rescue, and then we went as far as Florida to other sanctuaries, back and forth to South Dakota, and doing all the medical, because they didn't have any medical. So the medical has to be done in the field on the ground before you hit the road. And so it took, I think that was about a 3-month rescue. And then we were up on the fires last year. We went up, we got a call on a Saturday afternoon and go up and help other facilities evacuate for the fire. And that was amazing, because just to see that they had no evacuation plan and no caging and not enough drugs and not enough darts, it was a learning experience.
I don't know if you want to talk about this one, but I do know about the one that happened in Ohio. I think it was last year, where it was someone who owned an animal farm and basically opened the doors and let all of his animals out. And
that was
killed
a Zanesville event, and that was Terry Thompson. And it's not really known if he was murdered or let the animals out, but whatever, the animals were let out of the cages and they were shot. And a lot of them, I think there was only, I don't remember how many, 4 or 6 that were not shot that ended up at the zoo. So that actually put in motion how we got SB 310, which was this Ohio state law passed, because Ohio was a key state. It was probably the state that had the most exotic animal auctions where anybody could go buy a tiger or a cougar. So it helped to put the laws so that now you have to have a USDA permit to go there and buy an animal, or you have to be permitted. And it put the state law through in Ohio that stopped private ownership and the unnecessary breeding. So we've worked with the state of Ohio to either go in and get the owner to decide to do the right thing and build the proper fencing so they can keep their animals, or to surrender their animals and we help them get them to sanctuaries, or the state has gone in and compensated them and then we get them to sanctuaries. So we've moved well over 200 lions, tigers, and bears out of the state of Ohio in the last 2-3 years.
And most of them don't wind up here. You're helping them go somewhere else.
Like I said, and it's such a big commitment for sanctuaries. Every time you take an animal, you got to provide for life.
Yeah.
And so if another sanctuary has an opening, we go there. And sometimes a sanctuary can take 4 or 6 animals in at a time, and they can only take 1. And if animals are housed together, it makes it easier for us because they can go in one habitat together versus we have to have 2 separate habitats. Mm-hmm. So it depends on how they're housed too. You want to try not to separate them if they're together, and you don't want to make it any more stressful and traumatic for them. And a lot of times the animals that come out of these abusive situations, they don't know, and they're afraid of space, or it's just a change, whether it's good or bad. The lion we just brought in, he's still looking for his people. Every time you open the gate, he's just waiting, and then we come in, he's like, "Oh darn, it's not my people." But he'll change. It'll change.
He'll get there.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds to me too like obviously you have a ton of work on your hands.
This is 24/7. There's no lack of work.
So from fundraising to office duties to managing your volunteers to leading the rescues, the other piece that I'm sure you never thought that you would get into is the sheer legislative side. I think that you just spoke about it with Ohio, but you made some major impacts over the past however many years. And I will gloat a little bit for you, but you were, in 2010, you're a nominee for Woman of the Year by the California Legislative Assembly. Is that right?
Yes.
It's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I guess.
You were also awarded 2-time Organization of the Year in 2008 and 2012 by the Alpine Chamber of Commerce. Also very good. One of my favorite things, too, is that you have worked not only with local, county, city, state, but you've also done a lot as far as the federal side when it comes to legislation. One of them, obviously, I'll probably screw this up, but one of them is the Big Cats and Public Safety Protection Act.
Right. And that's the federal bill that stops private ownership and the unnecessary breeding of the animals. And we've tried twice. We go and walk the halls and, try to get representatives behind us, but it's failed twice and we're on the third try. And it's really hard because animals are considered property. People consider them property. So they want to say it's their constitutional right to own a tiger. And then, of course, the people that are making all the money want to stop you. And it's really the only way to stop this problem is to have change. And so you got to have laws. And sometimes there's just no common sense behind the laws. So we don't get them passed.
Yeah.
And it's really hard. And a lot of organizations believe that regulation doesn't work. And I disagree. There has to be regulation in order to make this work. But then it has to be enforced.
Yeah.
And it's kind of catch-22 because we've made a lot of progress in protecting the animals, but it's also made the people go underground, so they're more hiding it. So that's why we don't know where a lot of the animals are disappearing to now. And it makes it harder for them to come forward to a sanctuary and surrender their animals because they don't want to be exposed. Mm-hmm. So that makes it hard too.
Because then they'll face ramifications.
Right.
Even though at the end of the day, the best interest would be for the animal.
Exactly.
So you have obviously a gorgeous ground. You have some fundraising lined up. You're seemingly in a good spot, but I get it that you are, one of the quotes I've read is that you are a tireless advocate. So you have chosen this profession, you've chose this entrepreneurial venture, and now you're completely submerged. There's no getting out of it now. Obviously, that's a lifestyle change and commitment, which is really admirable and really cool. What would you like to see happen next that would really kind of help maybe alleviate some of the stresses or just help in general?
I would like to see actual abuse laws, like when an animal's being abused, or especially primates. I don't work with primates, but when you see them in a cage all by themselves as a pet, it's just heartbreaking. Knowing what we know now, I think a lot of things are finally changing. Like the circus is a perfect example. They're going away because people know. And entertainment animals, like just in LA, they just finally passed the ordinance that they're not going to allow entertainment animals on the streets and in the clubs and et cetera. So I think people are finally, and I think social media has been a big help, know what animals have to go through to be trained and how heartbreaking it can be and how they're broke down and beaten sometimes to do a trick for a movie or, to go on stage. And I think that people are finally seeing what it takes and they don't accept it anymore.
One thing before we get to the last 5 questions that we always ask everyone that comes onto the Vicariously podcast, I do want to touch base just on the fundraising stuff. So obviously you have this Casino Royale event, which is your biggest fundraiser, and you're going to do a lot of giveaways. You probably have, I think you mentioned about 150 different items for silent auction. You are also going to casino games, etc. It'll be a fun event. May 20th is the Casino Royale. That's your biggest event. And then you also have, what is the wine event? I think it's July 22nd down the road.
Right, Sipping at Sunset, we call that. And we actually team up with another organization called Nasefu. So they help stop poaching in Africa.
Very
and
cool.
It's with Co Lewis from KGB. She's on the board in Nasefu. So she'll be here. And every year we do the event together.
Nice.
Yeah.
That sounds like an ideal
so you
evening.
Can help 2 organizations.
It is 2 organizations, and that sounds like a pretty ideal date night right there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so a couple other fundraising. I want to give you some plugs here. The Amazon Smile. So essentially, if you shop on Amazon at all, if you just go to Amazon Smile instead, a portion of your expenses or costs or whatever it is that you're buying goes towards a charity of your choice. Is that right?
That's right.
So what else is on Amazon Smile? I think you have items for...
Right, lions, tigers, and bears. You would just choose lions, tigers, and bears. And then you can also go to the wish list. And then that organization's items that they need that you can buy from Amazon are on there.
So basically, if you're already doing online shopping, you can tack a couple more items on for lions, tigers, and bears. And then at the end of it, your entire portion of your entire order will be donated to them. That seems pretty easy. Another one is you have a tax fundraiser. Can you
Right. Every year, Brent Hogue, who's in Mission Valley, he will donate doing taxes for 2 years. So if you go to get your taxes done, he will charge you, but the money goes to lions, tigers, and bears.
Awesome.
Right. Which is just incredible on his part. It's a lot of work.
That is, but you have done a lot of work. So people should be helping out. All right. So here we go. The last 5 questions. I know that you have a very unique setup here, but what advice to any young entrepreneur out there would you give?
Who wants to start a sanctuary or
anything?
Don't be afraid, and just don't be afraid. Jump in and do it, and you got to follow your heart.
Because once you get it started, it is extremely rewarding.
Right, and I hear all the time, "How do you do this? How do you do this?" I do it. Just do it.
It's great advice. All right, so this one's kind of interesting because you did have a restaurant business, but if you didn't start Lions, Tigers, and Bears, what do you think you would be doing today?
I'd still be at that same restaurant, probably.
Just plugging along. In Texas?
We were really lucky because we picked the perfect location right across the street from Courthouse. So no matter what, we were getting all the lunch business. I mean, we'd have a line out the door. And then we'd switch our menu at night and do a little bit fancier of a menu for the local people. And it was good, but it was hard to leave. But we made good money, and really it was smart to sell and go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. This is my favorite question that we ask everyone, but what does success mean to you?
I think feeling good about what you've done. And like for me, like I said, when you see an animal that's been living on 3 feet of its own feces and can't even turn around, and he's running and playing in a pool, and that to me is success. And getting this exotic animal trade stopped, if we can do that, that would be pretty awesome.
It is a very admirable profession that you've gone into. All right, this one's kind of random, but what are your favorite apps that you use on your phone? They could be personal or they could be business
Trucker
related.
Path.
Yeah.
Trucker Path for sure. That's probably really...
What is Trucker Path?
It's, when we're driving across the country, will tell you where the next truck stops are, and where exactly where you are. And it's just kind of something to refer to as a truck driver.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to learn how to do a lot of things to do this. I'm the night driver, so Ted drives with me, and he'll mostly drive during the day, and then I drive all night. And we just keep going. So when we get to the stops, I get out and take care of the animals, and he gets out and takes care of the truck. And then that way we can just keep moving.
I'm sure some of the other fellow truck drivers, when they see you guys there, are a little shocked.
Oh, yeah. Everyone wants to know what you have, And when you're empty, if we're on our way back and we're empty, they walked all the way over there, and they're all disappointed because we're empty. Yeah.
All right, last one. And this one we ask everyone, and I guess this one's going to be a little bit weird because Amy actually accepted it. But why did you accept my request for you to be on the Vicariously podcast?
Wow, I don't know. Why not?
That's cool.
Well, because honestly, we need people to know about lions, tigers, and bears. And more important, we need them to know about the exotic animal trade because, like I said, until you get here, most people don't even know what's going on in our country because they just think all the animals live at the zoo or they all live at the circus. But unfortunately, this whole situation started from these animals originating as surplus animals from our zoos years ago. And then they got out in the private sector and it's just gone wrong. And now the zoos are more responsible about, of course, where the animals go, but it's too late. The people that are breeding and breeding and breeding whatever to whatever, and they don't care, and trying to get one-off breeds and, things that don't normally exist in nature and trying to make money. As people, we can sure ruin a good thing.
Well, I really, really and truly appreciate your time today. I think this is such an amazing place. That is not a sales pitch. That is coming from a exotic animal lover. That is coming from someone who has always wanted to own a big cat my whole life, but I know better that is something that I can't handle. And so the absolute next best thing is coming out here to lions, tigers, and bears and seeing them being taken care of properly, especially after they've been rescued from somewhere in the country by you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your time. And this is going to be my last plug, but please do help fundraise. You heard it here, $1.5 million annually to upkeep with these animals, and they're continuing to take on more. So any and every bit helps, but thank you so much for sitting with us today, Bobbi, and please do go to the website, lionstigersandbears.org. We are out.
Thank you.